Hi, fellow hardcore boxing addicts. I'm Stefke, a friend of BDA Boxing Live channel, and I wish you all welcome to this detailed breakdown for the upcoming Canelo vs. Crawford fight. Let's first examine the ways in which Crawford is using his right jab, although it's not rare to see him fencing with his lead hand in a triangle motion, up, down, and outside, looking to create an opening for a jab in a similar manner to Usyk, but with the only difference being that Crawford seems to be slightly more concerned with using it in a more defensive manner, like occupying the opponent's jab and disrupting his offense. Here we see him preventing Benavidez from being more aggressive by keeping his gloves close to his face with constant jabs and probes. Benavidez being preoccupied with defending himself, Crawford feels safer to step closer and hit him with power punches. Or Crawford can bring his jab close to his own face while stepping back and feint upstairs, inviting his opponent to extend his lead arm, stepping forward, the position from which he's too slow to bring his lead hand back and defend from a body shot, into which Crawford ran him in. When he's looking to land his jab upstairs, he's doing an excellent job, timing the rhythm of his opponents, bouncing and rocking forward from back to front foot like he would do to a speed bag in the gym. It's legitimate to be concerned with how well tactically prepared Canelo is for Crawford's jab, since Canelo has a tendency of coming forward behind his high guard and seemingly not jabbing at all on his way in, which could leave a lot of space for Crawford to catch him coming in with quick straight single punches or combos and step out. However, ever since moving up to 168 and changing his style, Canelo never gets dragged into lead hand battles. He's using his jab only at his own terms when he wants to throw it or when he wants to feint or set up something with it. The point is, he isn't allowing anyone to bait him into a lead hand battle. Meanwhile, he's using his right glove to parry with. The same was seen against Billy Joe Saunders. But being too smart to get baited into lead hand battles doesn't mean he wasn't setting up his offense with it. Like here, intentionally dropping his lead glove, baiting Saunders' jab. And what's very interesting about Crawford is that a huge part of his boxing is built around him setting a trap by engaging his opponents into a lead hand battle. He does it by leaning forward with a feint or a jab, and as they step in with their own jab, he either leans back or pivots while timing them with his right hook, or a jab, or a right hook, left uppercut combo.
Ooh, Crawford, he's so fine.
Another, basically the same trap that he's using as often, is the previously seen trap, but with the lateral movement dimension added to it. Crawford would move laterally to his left and his opponent's right side, and right when the opponent starts stepping forward with his lead foot, Crawford pulls his own lead foot outside and changes the direction by pivoting out with a check hook or a check jab. However, Madrimov was beating him at his own game by engaging Crawford's lead hand with very short feints, then beating him to the punch with both left and right hands. It is also noticeable that despite having great timing and reflexes and quick hands, Crawford seems unable to move away from quick, non-telegraphed, and compact punches. And there is a lot of footage of Crawford stepping forward with setup punches too carelessly as if he wasn't expecting any counters over it, then getting punished for those mistakes. It shouldn't even be expected to see him that careless against Canelo. If anything, it should rather be expected to see Crawford more calculating than ever before. Now, when you see Crawford's opponents occupy his lead hand with their own, and then when they drop low and load on their right hand, I want you to pay close attention to how Crawford's rear left hand is reacting.
Oh, he's down!
Here, Madrimov did something very clever and unusual. He stepped outside of Crawford's lead foot, but he then leaned in order to reach Crawford around the guard with the looping right hand thrown from the opposite direction. In the mid-rounds, Crawford's partially adapted to the straight rights that Madrimov was landing on him way too often. He started neutralizing them by parrying with his left glove. Canelo's excellent at mixing up straight and looping punches, and at reading the situation and modifying his punches based on his opponent's reaction, there's no doubt he would immediately see the openings for his right hook, like these ones. When being attacked by the right hook upstairs, Crawford also has a tendency of catching it and shooting his straight left hand, but whenever his opponent's right hook is followed up by a short left hand, he always gets caught with it. Here you see Benavidez stepping in with the right hand, but he just feinted it instead of throwing it, which was enough to convince Crawford that he's throwing a right hand, so Crawford slipped it, and as he was loading up on his rear hand, he ran himself into a short left hook. While at first glance, Canelo's jab doesn't seem to be very active, it is astonishing to find out just how dependent his offense is on his subtle use of his jab in his combos. It goes from the usual feints used to find the openings, using the jab itself as a power punch, to set up a left hook, it then allows him to start mixing up something that is deadly to Crawford, looping and straight punches. Watch Canelo subtly feint a jab, making Munguia extend his right glove forward. By that time, Canelo turns it into a left hook, which conditions Munguia to keep his glove to the side of his face, allowing Canelo to land a clean straight punch in the following sequence. Another case of Canelo landing a left hook, causing Munguia to place his glove to the side of his face and open up for the following power jab. Canelo steps in landing a very hard jab to such effect that a following mere tap on a guard with which Canelo smothered Berlanga's guard caused Berlanga to tighten up and hide in panic, not realizing it was all a part of Canelo's chess move to place a right hook to the body. Canelo is also using an old psychological trick which is very effective for cutting off the ring. It is surprising how easy feinting and probing with his lead hand outside of his opponent's right shoulder makes them change the direction of their lateral movement and start moving toward his rear hand. Oh. Foot feints are another way in which he could trigger Crawford's lead hand. However, Canelo's approach of throwing a single punch per exchange may play in Crawford's favor, as it would offer Crawford a large time gap to reply with one or even few of his own punches over it. Canelo is very quick at taking a back step to evade his opponent's punch, but due to his tendency of backing in a straight line, Crawford may initially find success jumping in with his 2-1s before Canelo starts adapting to it. But it's questionable if Crawford would be as willing to jump in with those risky combos against Canelo as he was against his smaller opponents. Benavidez was extremely successful at stepping back whenever Crawford was carelessly stepping forward with punches, which Benavidez was constantly timing with his lead hand and also with his rear hand. The footage suggests that Canelo should be able to do the same. Or even counter it stepping forward. The staggering amount of straight rights Madrimov landed on Crawford, even when he had a high guard, rightfully made people question his reflexes, wondering if they are shot. Which could be the case, but the examination of his older fights is showing that his high guard was always easy to pierce through with straight, non-telegraphed punches. The same type of punches Canelo is still capable of landing. The following sequence is yet another testament to Canelo's subtle chess moves. He leans forward and tilts his upper body over to his left side, a position, which is indicating Berlanga that he's about to throw a left hook. Berlanga acts accordingly and places his right glove to the side of his chin. The moment Canelo sees it, he weaves back to the center and takes Berlanga's head off with a shotgun jab down the middle. Which brings us back to Crawford's defense being compromised against the opponents, mixing up straight punches or feints and the looping ones, especially during his pivots. Canelo is also extremely skillful at opening a tight guard, like we see his jab, splitting Munguia's guard a bit, enough for the following right hand, which instead of being thrown straight down the pipe, he intentionally aimed the right side of Munguia's face with it, so his glove would end up sliding over Munguia's right glove, kicking it out of the way for this powerful and accurate jab right to his jaw. This is the exact trick Bivol uses all the time and the one that Golovkin used on Canelo throughout their whole rematch. Then he adds an additional layer of deception to it in the next round. His jab lands, but also moves Munguia's right glove away. Then his right uppercut partially lands, but it was visibly aimed much more at Munguia's right glove, moving it away once more. This is not an accident for a such accurate puncher as Canelo. Both those punches were designed to give Munguia the false belief that Canelo was clearing the way for the third punch that was going to be aimed in between his gloves, while in reality it would cause Munguia to uncover his liver. Canelo didn't manage to land it, but it is a formidable testament to his cleverness. Against Saunders constantly battling to step or pivot outside of his lead foot, Canelo demonstrated multiple solutions for it. From the purely defensive one, like taking the angle away from Saunders by stepping back, to timing his pivots with the left hook to the body and kidneys, to left hooks upstairs, plenty of uppercuts to the solar plexus, before starting to throw them upstairs, and also catching him with straight rights on the pivot. While Skull's excessive movement troubled him, it's wrong to assume that Crawford, who doesn't have the same style and neither the youth of Skull, would adapt a similar plan against Canelo, and even despite the excessive running, Canelo still managed to catch him with plenty of hooks on the ropes and stop him for a second. But many of those hooks ended on Skull's hips, the signature dirty move of Canelo. If he uses it against Crawford, no one should be surprised to see Crawford retaliate. There were multiple occasions where Crawford got hit by Madrimov's straight rights despite moving outside of his reach. This is an old Mexican trick allowing fighters to close more distance by bringing their rear foot forward and underneath their base before stepping in with a punch. There are even more examples of Madrimov cutting off the ring extremely quickly against Crawford, thanks to crossing his feet, which enabled him to move at the same speed Crawford was moving, like his shadow. If he was obeying the boxing basics, he would always be 2 or 3 steps behind Crawford. Speaking of good footwork, let's dive once more into Canelo's bag of subtle tricks. We see his and Berlanga's stance basically mirroring one another, having their front foot in between each other's 2 feet, an angle which does not allow an easy opportunity to land a jab in between each other's gloves. Canelo feints a jab, behind which he steps left and narrows his hips and shoulders in the same way like when you are executing a check hook, but jabbing instead. This maneuver placed him at a much better angle from which the gap between Berlanga's gloves was much bigger. This one exemplifies his capabilities to read the signs in the ring and adjust. Skull's body language indicated him that he was setting a straight right pull counter, so Canelo jabs in order to trigger Skull's pull counter while stepping outside of his rear foot with the same mechanics seen in the previous example. If Skull had tried to do a pull counter over that jab, Canelo would have countered him with either a left hook or his own pull counter. Careful observer would notice that he likes to move outside of his opponent's rear foot, looking to trigger their rear hand and counter it just like Beterbiev does. But Canelo himself and Golovkin both used this tactic against each other a lot in their rematch. There's a misconception that his feet are slow, but I would argue the opposite. In fact, he's very quick at cutting off the ring. What troubles him is his necessity to set his feet in order to punch, which is often confused with slow feet but are two completely separate issues. Just look at how much distance he's able to close and how deep he's able to reach by bringing his rear foot underneath his core before stepping in with a punch. The bad side of this unorthodox move is that a good boxer with good timing can step in and disrupt his offense with jabs, keeping him off balance, so it should be done while properly managing the distance. What's even worse for Canelo is that he's often not using his jab while stepping forward, so it could encourage Crawford to step in and beat him to the punch. Bivol was keeping him off balance and timing him perfectly with quick, short in-and-out movement, and by firing quick, straight punches over his setups and telegraphed punches. Crawford does possess the timing and sharpness, but would he have the same bounce and spring in his feet, the same power, and as good punch absorption at 168? And just like Bivol, Munguia showed us too that Canelo's setup punches are giving plenty of opportunities to his quick-handed opponents to win the exchanges against him. And the final rounds of his bout with Skull showed us how frustrated he was with the excessive movement. But honestly, while Crawford out-quicking Canelo with both his hands and his feet is conceivable, it's hard to imagine him moving as much as Skull. Despite Spence not being Canelo in their fight, Crawford demonstrated that he's capable of tailoring his fight plan in accordance to his opponent's strengths and weaknesses. In their fight, he was taking way less risks than usual, and he stuck to the fundamental. Instead, he was more defensively responsible and wasn't opening himself with risky moves. The most visible difference was Crawford switching his jab from the usual flicking jab, mainly used as a bait to set up a counter, to a powerful stiff jab used to inflict the damage on Spence. So it should come as no surprise if Crawford gives us a performance without some or without many flaws that we are warning the viewers about in this lead up to the Canelo fight. The footage suggests that the reason behind Crawford often being beaten to the punch in the exchanges is because while his opponents are shooting short and compact punches from a high guard, which means their gloves are close to Crawford's face even before throwing a punch. Meanwhile, Crawford keeps his lead glove on his hip, so he needs to raise counter right hook all the way up in a circular motion while leaning back. Or when he's the aggressor and throws combos while being inside of his opponent's reach, he's leaving his chin fully opened when throwing his powerful whipping punches by twisting his whole body and putting his weight behind them, but not moving his head at all. To the surprise of many, it is possible for Crawford to win the mid and close-range exchanges against Canelo. He's creative with his combos, distracting you with one short punch while sneaking a wide whipping punch behind it, which is very effective at short range because it comes from the outside of your peripheral vision. His combos can be very sneaky and quick. In between his punches, Crawford is occupying and smothering his opponents with his elbows, or by extending his gloves right in front of their faces. Meanwhile, he's changing the angle of his head and his feet on a dime. Here's one of his go-to moves on the inside, and he slips on the inside of the orthodox opponent, throws the left hand, and as soon as he throws it, he smothers him with his right elbow and keeps it on while stepping to the angle on the left, from where he can throw another left hand from a blind angle.
Ooh, Crawford, he's so fine.
But here are a few problems. Would Canelo respect Crawford's setups and him extending his arms, which are leaving his chin completely opened, as much as Crawford's undersized and weaker punching opponents did at 147? Even in case of Crawford winning more of these exchanges than Canelo, would he find it worth running a risk of opening himself that much against a puncher of Canelo's level that he never faced before? After tasting Canelo's power, he could possibly adapt a more defensive approach, but following the trend of fights in which he was getting outboxed until turning into a slugger, outpowering and stopping them in the later rounds, he could be as well tricked into a Canelo versus Kirkland type of firefight. Canelo himself knows how to sneak in well-timed stealth punches without needing much space at all. And watch the sequence of Saunders trying to fight him on the inside the same way Crawford does, then getting clipped on the chin with the uppercut, and immediately jumping out of range. And beside having an iron chin, when he chooses to only defend and try not to get hit, his defense still looks great behind his airtight high guard. And speaking of a high guard, one has to wonder, would Crawford's body hold up in case Canelo tries to hurt his upper arms? After Mario Lopez's statement on 3 Knockdown Rules podcast, who was watching the Madrimov fight live in the arena and claimed that Madrimov was visibly hurting Crawford to the body, rewatching of this sequence of Crawford's fight against Avanesyan couldn't go unnoticed neither. It appears that Avanesyan hurt him with well-timed counter left hook to the liver. Also, we already know how good is Canelo at placing the classic liver shots, so we won't go into it right now. However, we are going to show you this very smart trick he uses to place a liver shot on the opponents. He uses a lot of lateral movement. As they circle towards Canelo's right side, he throws a big telegraphing right hook. The right hook causes them to move in the opposite direction, but Canelo times it with a quick liver shot, thrown right behind the big right hook. I would love to thank God, His Excellency King Bucho, Mr. BDA, as well as Al Heyman for giving me this opportunity. Please let me know your thoughts about this breakdown and how do you see the fight itself going.